This is my 1930 General Radio beat frequency oscillator, model 413B. The original A model came out in 1927. This one only appears in the 1930 catalog, and then it was replaced in 1932 by the next generation model. Rated specs are 50 to 10 kilohertz. This one appears to be, after quite a bit of work, it actually does somewhere around 40 to 12K, depending on calibration and whatnot. I believe at the time it still would have been used with the equivalent of a frequency meter or frequency counter. When I got this, I found it at Goodwill for next to nothing, and it really didn't work. It would turn on and it would produce a tone of some sort, but I found as I was working on it quite a few loose connections, a couple of bad capacitors, and the main capacitor was grossly out of adjustment. Somebody had loosened it and set it probably 50% twisted out of spec. It would only do about a 2 kilohertz range, minimal adjustment. It was all over the place. However, with all of these adjustments, I now have it running full range. Not a perfect sine wave. Currently it is set for right around 40 hertz. It's running a little lower than it should for this setting. And you can't really hear it. It's running through a computer speaker. Let's start running up through the range. It does have a frequency graph that corresponds to the numbers on here, and it's pretty close, within a couple of hundred hertz, depending on where you are in the scale. So let's start slowly turning it up. Here we're at a setting of 10, which should read right around 400 hertz, and it's reading at about 434. Let's set our scale a little wider so we can actually see something as we go up. Let's jump up to about 50 on the scale, which 50 on the scale should be reading right around 6, let's see, actually 50 on the scale should be right around 4K, and it's at about 4.5, so 4,500. Again, let's bump open our scale. There's a little bit of noise on the output. Again, given that this thing is 85 years old, I think it's pretty decent sounding. Let's sitting about 80 on the dial, which should give us an output fairly high. 80 on this scale should be almost 10K, and it's reading 9.9. As we go up to 100 on the scale, it maxes out at about 12.5K. Again, not the cleanest sine wave, but it is there. at 0, which it actually doesn't give a scale reading for, but at 0 it's actually generating 22 hertz. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, 22 at current settings. Actually, it's sitting down around 18. I've actually been able to set it very, very much lower than that. But again, it's based on calibration.